Paul, turn your mic on.
Help me through
There,
this.
got it.
Only done this one other time. Like to call to order, Park and Rec meeting, what is the date? January 4th, 2024. And I need to approve that?
Approve the agenda.
Yeah. Can I call to approve the agenda?
Or so move.
I'll second it to approve the agenda.
Motion by Paula, second by Sherry.
The third.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's see. Approval of agenda, approval of the November 2nd, 2023 minutes. It's been a couple of months since we've met last. And
Have a motion.
do I need a motion for that too?
Yep.
A motion to approve.
Melissa. Second,
Second the motion.
Sherry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to open forum.
Seeing none.
Nobody
It's a
here.
quiet house tonight. All right, no business in the open forum, so we're gonna move on to the department reports.
Thank you. It's been an interesting winter, but it's finally starting.
I saw your note on Facebook today.
Yes, so we have started flooding the rinks this week. We are making steady progress. The goal is to be open for Monday's pond hockey.
Yay.
So that's what we're shooting for. We do have 5 light bulbs out on the rink. And for those of you that have been here a while, you might know it's highly unlikely we're ever gonna get replacement bulbs. The last time they tried to get them, they scoured the country and they got 12. And so we have used all of our bulbs. So there's good, safe light out there this year, but we are down 5 bulbs. Making progress, so that's exciting to finally get to that.
You're down 5 bulbs. How many bulbs do you have out there?
There's 15 per light pole on the hockey rink.
So you were able to replace the ones that were out?
Last year we were, this year we're just down 5.
We're completely out of them.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yes. With some of the large rainfall that we received in December, also with previous snow melt, the community center basement, water gets into it. We think that it is coming in through the foundation, somewhere along where the pavement meets the building. So we haven't been able to locate an obvious crack or anything, but it is something that we're paying attention to and have discussions of trying to figure out how to address that, but I believe it's a long-standing issue that's been happening. The community center parking lot is due up on the the 2025 road bond. It's looking at on that, and we're hoping that maybe during that it could be addressed, if not sooner. Public Works has kind of been helping us, but we didn't see an obvious crack to fix it. But my understanding from Public Works, and it's been happening for years and years in different locations. So it's usually the spring melt and oddly enough, December rainfall. Also in the community center, we did have a fan motor on a furnace fix and a thermostat, so we're kind of doing some of the preventative maintenance over there. We did have the semi-annual checks, and those were some of the things that got fixed. Like I said, we're flooding the rinks. The warming house will likely be open next week. We do have staff for all of that. They're ready to get going. And then we have a older pond hockey team. We did not have enough for the younger group, the 7 to 10 group. We didn't have enough registration, so we do not have a younger group. And then the Wednesday night adult league is just going to do adult open hockey this season. So we're not organized teams. It's just whoever shows up can play.
Okay.
Um, um, a few different things. It's, that's definitely one of them. With last year, we ended the season almost 3 weeks early. This year, we're starting 2 weeks late. And so there's just variables within that, as well as just their own lives. And basketball starts next week. So they will be at Nisswa Elementary. So we have 36 participants in basketball.
What age group is that, Amber?
5 to 6 and 7 to 9,
Okay.
Is that in the high school?
elementary school.
Okay.
Do they play each other or do they travel around?
They just play each other.
Thank
So I
God for
capped
that.
it at 20 per age group because that seems like a wild time. Alyssa's been there for soccer and it's a lot of kids in a little space.
Yeah.
So we left it at 20 for good teams.
Yeah.
Good team size. Yeah, so that's all kind of coming together now here in January in the new year. For the Gull Lake Trail, just I think I sent an update in December to you guys. But just to recap that at the November meeting, the city council did vote to not groom the Gull Lake Trail. As well as they updated the ordinance to prohibit golf carts on the Gull Lake Trail. So both of those things happened in November. For the existing section, and then we did receive funding for the CASA 77 section, and we have finalized that grant with the DNR. So we'll be able to finalize the current section in the spring while we work on getting going and making sure the plans are good for the new section and getting that ready for bid for 2025 construction.
Now, Lakeshore, they didn't get grant funding for what they need to finish, correct?
Correct. Just Nisswa and Fairview Township.
So it'll basically go all the way around, have that stop section in Lakeshore. And then continue.
Correct. Yeah, so ours will stop at the county line. You can use the shoulder of the road if that's something you feel comfortable with until about at the top of the hill down into Lakeshore.
Did they finish the bridge, the pedestrian bike bridge this fall?
There's a transition that's gonna have to be paved come spring, but the bridge is in.
Okay.
But they had to do like a class 5 transition.
Oh,
Where's that at?
yeah, down
Down by
by
Zorba.
Bar Harbor and that area, and
Yeah.
by Zorba's.
Oh, okay.
It looks really nice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Real nice. We had to do some changes on it.
Yeah. So there'll be some finalization of everything, making sure restoration and final touches of things and final punch list items will all happen in the spring for the existing sections.
Is that something that they hope to groom when it's completed, or are they not planning to groom that?
Fairview Township and Lakeshore did approve grooming on their sections. So there's parts of the snowmobile routes that have previously gone where the trail is now. And so it was kind of left up to each jurisdiction to determine a course of action and so that's kind of where we've landed for this first year foreseeable future, and there's no snow to see how it's functioning. See the footprints on there. So there's walkers using it still. Any other questions? Otherwise I can roll on to new business. Okay, so we have a vacant commission seat, for a 4-year term, and we had 2 applicants. Those applications were in your packet. The process that we've followed in the past is I just show you the applications. Usually somebody will sit on an interview with me, will interview the applicants and then bring back a recommendation to you guys, which would then be recommended to council for the appointment. So happy to answer any questions on the process. But ultimately looking for anyone who is willing to participate in interviews. I do not know their entire availability, but should be able to find something.
If you need, if nobody else wants, if you need somebody else, I'll step in.
Okay.
So I'm open.
I'm happy to too. I mean,
Okay.
whatever. I'm pretty free during the day if you need somebody.
Sounds good.
I can make myself free.
I'm a little less
Great,
flexible during the
thank you.
day.
Yeah.
They both look like great.
Yeah, they do look
Yes.
like great.
Yes, they all have, both have
applicants.
tremendous
Yeah,
experience.
Uh-huh.
Well,
So-
one of the applicants was on the Cooper.
Yes,
Oh,
That's what I was gonna
okay.
find the name.
Oh.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Okay, that makes sense.
That was like,
Okay.
Like,
I unofficially interviewed him at Roundhouse.
The tour of the parks, what was that?
in August, when we brought city council
Oh, okay.
around. Okay, well, I will work with them on some of their availability and Alyssa if during daytime and we'll go from there. But yeah, I think they're both really invested in Nisswa and parks, and I think
Yeah.
we got plenty of things coming down the pipeline to find things for everybody who wants to be involved. Okay, so I will follow up on that one. We'll try and get interviews conducted here in January and then have a recommendation brought back to council or to you guys, in February. Excellent. So new business, item B, the Camp Lincoln Road parcels. So over the summer, we had the survey work done. The engineers staked a center line, and that is what the archaeological survey was based off of. We did do the road, the parking lot, and the anticipated trails based off of the design from HKGI. So that was that map that was in your packet, with the dotted lines. And so the archaeological study came back clean, so we are free to proceed with the project in those areas. And with that, I have worked with Public Works to obtain a couple of quotes for parking lot, road, trail, and then also a vendor for the bathroom. So the county put the stipulation on the bathroom for what kind of level of toilet they would like. We do not have infrastructure out there, so we're looking at a closed vault toilet. And the one that was in your packet is the exact one that is used at like the fire tower. And so that is right about in the price point that we've been discussing with city council. They did allocate ARPA funds to this project. And so that's right in the allocated amount of money. So we do have 2 quotes for the road, parking lot, and then the option to add trail. When we're looking at the map, let me see if I can scroll faster here. So we kind of looked at trying to do 1 or 2 loops off of the parking lot. So 1 loop being through kind of here, somewhere around in here, being about 3,000 feet long, with a secondary loop being about just over 2,000. And so we have them bid it in 1,000-foot increments to help us determine how much trail we could potentially build. Ultimately, there's about 6,000 feet of trail there. And so what I gave you a paper copy of is an updated quote from Pratt that does include a line item on there for if we wanted to add on trail. So there, Pratt's quote for the road in the parking lot is 21,501 with the option to add trails at $4,000 per 1,000 feet of trail. So if we're doing 3,000 feet of trail, like one loop, we're at 12,000. If we're doing all 6,000 feet of trail, we're at 24,000 on top of the road and parking lot.
How long does that quote last? I mean, is there a time limit on that?
Usually they're a couple weeks, 30 days.
Say that again for, Pratt's, it'd be how much? Cause that's considerably more than the Shrupp one.
So there's two things, the road and the parking lot
Yeah.
at 21,500,
Mm-hmm.
and then $4,000 for every 1,000 feet of trail.
Okay.
And then if you go to Shrubs, they have 17,500 for the road and parking lot. And then it is 10,400 for every 1,000 foot of trail.
Oh, well,
And when we say,
there's.
Shrub excavating,
One said 4,000 and one said 10,000 per 1,000 feet? Oh.
yeah, the 4,000 seems extremely reasonable. Extremely. Is it, and just to clarify, it is 1,000 lineal feet
Correct.
versus not square feet?
yes, linear.
Okay.
And that will be like class 5, correct? Not
The parking lot we have is class 5. The trail, we are looking at crushed concrete, which is the same as what's at Nisswa Lake Park. It's fantastic for water.
Yeah.
And it's very solid. There's no weeds getting through that thing.
Are those two trails hooked on one another? Are they separate two trails that you're talking about, Amber?
Nope, just kind of a loop, like a switchback, a cutback.
So it's one loop, but I mean, you can make that into two, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so,
it's Trails.
yeah, so
okay.
they kind of know that this is the baseline and they're gonna follow us on the trails as we kind of follow the center line that's marked, but we're gonna try and save as many trees as we can and just not zigzag, but if we can meander and just kind of keep it to the brush, we're gonna keep it to the brush versus substantial trees.
I guess I thought the parking lot was off of Camp Lincoln Road, but this is the configuration that was in the master plan.
So Camp Lincoln Road
Mm-hmm.
is running right here and then, Buck Landing. So it's just near, kind of becomes close to an intersection. There's a little offset. It's just over 400 feet, give or take of road, again, trying to not zigzag, but path of least trees, to a parking lot. And that parking lot that is staked there is 30 by 100, and we've talked about, we're probably gonna need a little bit more cleared. Probably 40 feet of class 5 with a buffer cleared around it.
So you come off of Camp Lincoln.
Correct.
So we have to build a road into the parking lot.
Yeah, and so how they get the toilets in there, they come on a very large truck that's precast concrete, so these things weigh, one of the other ones I was looking at was about 23 tons, and then they have to crane it over, so it needs a little bit of swing room to be placed. So it is a substantial toilet with I believe, a 20-year.
Didn't we have 4 years to get the toilet in there, or has it been 4 years? And how many years has it been since the county deeded
We
it over
are
to? That's
in
it?
our 4th
Huh?
year.
It has been 4 years?
It was approved February of 2021.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
So-
summer.
Yeah, so we're getting to the final
Okay.
stage of that.
Yep, it's true when you get older.
Time flies.
The days go by faster.
Time flies when you're doing a master plan in a trail. So looking, any other questions from you guys on these quotes that I can help answer on what it's gonna look? I know we haven't kind of talked about this. I got the archaeological results and we just took off.
Well,
So
there's,
I
a-
want to bring it to you guys to make sure that you're up to date, clear and comfortable on the direction of this and
who makes the final decision on who the construction company is?
I know this is, you guys just got the one updated quote today, but ultimately I'd look for a recommendation from you guys to bring to city council. I'd be willing to just put thoughts together. I know that some of these, they're eager to get this work done in the winter and drop the trees and take care of some of the brush on site over the winter months.
Mhm.
And so they would sooner for them is favorable. But wanting to make sure that you guys feel up to date and caught up. And for me, we've been allocated some ARPA funds in the budgetary process. I kind of threw out the number of 70,000. If you're looking at, Pratt doing the road and parking lot and all the trails, you're about 50,000. If you are looking at Shrub doing the 6,000 feet of trail, plus that one would be the higher. So it's just kind of a matter of if we're only looking at doing the road in the parking lot, if we want to add in some trail, these are a lower or in line to lower than what I brought to council as an initial estimate. I think there's a lot of value in getting it just done. So it's not a road and parking lot to nowhere, to get some infrastructure in there, especially knowing that we're gonna have this project coming down, we're gonna be building the trail. That would be my thought on if council's agreeable to it, to get as much trail built as we can now on one go at it.
Yeah, we aren't gonna wanna have two different, I mean, we're not gonna have one do the trails and one do.
No, I would recommend picking, no, just picking one.
And from just my experience in the field, Shrupp is on the lower end of things usually. And to see Pratt come in significantly lower than Shrupp, well, it either puts a red flag up or it says we should get them in there as soon as possible and get as much done with Pratt as we can.
Yes. So I think we did communicate there is gonna be some in the field decision making as we go through this. But like I said, they're eager to get some winter work. And reason why we kind of started with them is they make their own class 5,
Who does, which ones do?
both.
Oh, both do.
To my understanding, both of them make their own class 5. And so we thought that might be an advantageous route.
Plus with no snow, right now, they can get a lot of work done fast.
Do you know anything, Paul, about Pratt?
I don't know a ton. I mean, I've never dealt with him personally. I deal with Shrupp on the daily.
Mhm.
But I've never worked with Pratt. I've seen his trucks around, but I don't know him personally.
Has the city worked with them before?
Public Works is the one who called them, and so, he's, the maintenance supervisor has done like construction, like built roads. So he's really familiar with the process and several of the companies. So he kind of took the lead in calling them and visiting with them on site. And so he's very comfortable with that. And so based on his recommendations and thoughts, I would be comfortable with either one.
I think the big difference is Pratt doesn't have to go out to subcontractors to get certain things to create like the class 5 and stuff, even though they both make class 5.
Mhm.
I've known them, Pratt's work, they do a good job. Well, they both do good jobs, but
Mhm. I would feel comfortable with Brett.
Well, if we can get more trails done,
Yeah.
you know, for the same amount of money, then I would favor going with the Pratts.
I agree with that.
Someone want to make a motion?
I can make a motion to, would it be to I guess choose Pratt's Excavating for the, work at Camp Lincoln?
To include the trails?
Or, yeah, and to include the trails.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Paula? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, will one of the trails go down by the lake?
Eventually, that's the hope. Right now, we're kind of just looking at staying high because I'm guessing I'm gonna have to talk with DNR.
Oh, okay, yeah.
they'll be amicable sometimes to want to put certain things in,
Mm-hmm.
especially that.
So I think in due time,
Does Pratt work in the evenings and at night?
I don't know,
No, I'm kidding.
In the dark with
in the dark with their,
rushing.
hey, cool. Any questions on the toilet?
No,
It's kind of just a package. Pick a color. Likely,
they do maintenance on it?
no, I don't think so. We would be able to excavate for the vault ourselves.
Okay,
And then it's placed and then we'd have to hire to get it pumped.
okay.
Is that open then all the time?
There's still operational things, and I know, I believe the fire tower locks theirs through the winter. But we have talked about, this one being a snowshoe trail and things like that. Obviously, we don't have grooming for cross-country skiing. So operationally, there's still things to work through. If it's gonna be a winter use, then, I've talked to them like, okay, make sure we have a spot to plow the parking lot and put the snow, things like that. So there are things that are still gonna have to come down the pipeline and
Is-
figure it out.
Is there any way, and by we excavate it, I mean, would we be getting a local excavator to do it? Like, could Pratt be on board for that?
Public Works can do it.
Oh, they can. Okay.
Yeah, with one of their new pieces of equipment.
Gotcha.
And they said even if they have to rent something, it's still probably cheaper to rent it and we do it versus finding a subcontractor to do that.
Great.
They're good at what they
Well, it's likely that maybe some of the local people might, clear their own cross-country ski
Yeah.
paths.
Yeah, so we just don't have the tracks to groom one, but they might make their own. And I think eventually we get the large things in there and then there's, I'll call it accessorizing our park with our picnic tables if we need to plant more trees. Eventually, next topic, wayfinding, getting the maps and things like that. So the bulk of the infrastructure will be there for us to build upon.
Okay, well, good work getting all that together.
Yeah, great job.
Awesome. Yes, I'm very appreciative of Public Works for helping with this one as well, so.
All right, so we're moving on to old business?
Yeah, old business. So in November, we began talking about wayfinding signs. Very high level preliminary information, part of some of the Gull Lake Trail Steering Committee items and locations that we think might need some identification. A lot of it surrounded the Pocket Park area, trying to get which way snowmobiles and golf carts and bikers and where everybody's crossing and parking. a lot of dialogue surrounding that, and that's kind of one of the main areas to focus on. Obviously, there's Camp Lincoln that's gonna have stuff, and the city park and all sorts of things. But really talking about a family of signs, something more of a branding for Nisswa, and things of that nature. And something that was approved towards the end of the year was to do a downtown master plan. And so planning and zoning is the lead on that. And I've talked with the city planner. They're very much aware of the master park plan, pocket park, the wayfinding struggles that Nisswa has. And that's gonna be incorporated into the downtown master plan, especially pocket park. And so I've provided a little bit of information that I have found, but I think this is also gonna be another discussion coming through the spring and just citywide, what might it entail? But in your packet, I gave you a copy of the email that I received from one company. They're certainly not the only one. They're relatively local, and by local, I mean Minnesota. We've had different fabrications made for like the pollinator sign. Someone out of Merrifield did that one.
Did they do that? The
No.
pollinator sign?
That company was out of Merrifield. So the designer was out of Duluth and production was out of Merrifield. For
Oh,
the
yeah, there's a company there
pollinator
called
sign.
Upland Advertising.
Yeah.
They did in the lake park, the pollinator signs?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yep. And so there's plenty of local options, just kind of ultimately depending on aesthetics, how citywide or park specific. Obviously, some of these things are just parks, like a mile marker is just parks. But I wanted to provide this information to you guys because it did highlight some of the process in which we would go about creating this brand and design. And then in the email, I sent a supplemental, their catalog, which had all the prices. I don't know if you guys were able to peruse it at all.
There's a lot of information.
There is a
in that.
ton of information. So
Yeah.
you have things if it's a ground mount or in ground, if it's a framed or not, and this is just this company's. But something interesting that I found with this one, the designer is a certified park and rec professional. So they have a good understanding of the park and recreation field and just the importance of what that marketing and looks like, what the graphics need to be. They do have the prices in here so that you kind of get a gauge of where you might land on these different things. I know something that we're always trying to shoot for is as low maintenance as possible. But something interesting that might be for consideration at Nisswa Lake Park is they have scrolling fast, don't get dizzy. These nature themed signs. They have a nature walk, and so it's these pre-made designed signs that we could maybe potentially pick an applicable one to insert along Camp Lincoln trails, talking about deer, birds, things like that. So it's kind of a cool concept that I thought was a little unique based on a park and rec sign making company. Just food for thought as we're looking at all of the different types of signs we might need. So we're not looking for necessarily any recommendations on anything. I just want you guys to know that there is a downtown master plan that wayfinding will be incorporated into. I know last month, it was Paula and Sherry here. We talked about just really having that cohesive design consistent throughout Nisswa, as well as some of the low maintenance, but wanted to bring it back and with this information, so you guys kind of had an idea of what some of the price points might be. maybe, give or take. Depending on what we go with. But if there's any other like high level considerations that we want to discuss, kind of where my mind was, like one of the first priorities is trying to get the Gull Lake Trail and Pocket Park and
Yes,
signage for flow
something
through
that
there.
shows them the different directions, especially down by the tunnel.
That
Yes.
needs high priority on that, yeah.
Yeah, so I agree that that is, to me, a very high priority. And I think some of it's more of a kiosk and some of it's more of like a directional
Yeah.
kind of thing. Looking at, is it a map? We do have to provide a sign for how the funding for the trail, so that could be a place that's located, and rules of the trail, things like that, I think could go in a kiosk. And then directional parking, trail route, bike route, things like that through there.
Even getting people from this side of Nisswa to that side of Nisswa too, to
Yeah.
understand it.
Both sides.
Yeah, or that side, yeah, exactly. That they-
And even
they
who's
know
supposed to
that
cross
it's
at the
available.
light, who can
Yeah.
cross at the tunnel,
Yeah.
all of those things.
Yeah.
And when like bikers come up out of the tunnel, if they're not familiar with the Paul Bunyan Trail, they won't know to
To
go
go
to the
right,
right,
to go
turn to the
left.
left, you
Yeah.
know, so,
Yeah.
they need, and maybe even down by where the old gas station was,
Mhm.
a sign to say,
Yeah, and right now they only have that one trail parking sign that's like an 8-inch sign. So I think that's where we talked about within the Gull Lake Trail Committee, brought that to Paul and Sherry in November. That to me is the primary location, and there's some directional and like a kiosk style. To design to be refined at some point, but this does show a bunch of different types, styles, to get us thinking aesthetically what we're trying to convey in our message.
right.
Um,
Well, it'd be nice if the downtown area is gonna look at signage, that if there's consistency in the primary look, but that directional signage has one typical look,
Mhm.
informational signage, where people are gonna be standing there reading for a while.
right.
Out of traffic.
Yeah, and it's got another consistent,
Yeah.
look to it.
Yes. Consistent branding is helpful,
Mhm.
I think. Any other high level thoughts or considerations? I think we're kind of all in agreement that that's a primary focal point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And once we get Camp Lincoln up and built, then we can have our design scheme already made. We can just begin to put that in there and create that information.
What timeline do you see? Do you think that we could have some directional signage up this summer?
I need to get Bethany and I are working on the RFP for the master plan coming up here January, February. And so I want to get with her a little bit closer on what exactly she's thinking. Because you can go to a company to design the family of signs. And so if that's the route we want to go, that could be a part of this process where all of Nisswa signs are designed and you have exactly what font, what the colors are, all of that. So I don't know if we're going to go to that level of detail in this or not. So I just got to fine tune that a little here as we begin to write the RFP
An RFP for companies to do this,
to do the downtown master plan.
oh, the downtown master plan, okay.
So I don't know how much of a deep dive wayfinding is going to be in that. But also trying to think it's more than just parks. It's
Will you be involved in those discussions?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. I gave her, she has a copy of the Parks and Rec master plan, so she has all the summary of wayfinding and pocket park considerations. And then she has the RFP that we did for the Parks master plan. So some of that will likely be mirrored in the downtown RFP. But it also has things like utilities and roads and sidewalks and ADA and those things in it,
Mhm.
aside from aesthetics. So more to come on it for sure, but want to keep you guys in the loop. And I know I said I'd bring some information back from vendors and give us an idea on some of the price tags. And this company in particular, to me, had an interesting approach, with a family kind of already created.
They do the design work for you, or?
They can,
can,
or we can
okay.
outsource that part
Got it.
and then send them those files.
Sure.
Is my understanding. If
Okay.
they can't do it, they likely can recommend somebody, but I know there are local people that could do that and provide some local business
Mhm.
within the process, so just kind of a matter of,
How are we gonna fund this?
I have been putting a little bit of money away every year. I've not added up what that might look like. But we have been putting some, I think we're almost up to 10,000 for wayfinding and signage.
Have we looked into any grants that we can apply for?
I know I've looked more specifically for Camp Lincoln and interpretive signs,
Mhm.
like in educational signs, and I think that certainly could be applicable. I'm not as sure if there's something for just like a basic town directional signage.
Yeah,
There po-
well, we've
possibly out there.
talked about in the past, the fact that the Camp Lincoln has a Native American ties to it, that the legacy, the arts and the, what's the name of the arts and what fund? Legacy Fund would be, there is a pot of money there that would be applicable. So that would be a good place. I don't know where you're looking, but that would be a good one to check into.
Yeah, I would have to, I have some notes on it. It's not coming to my mind right now. But I do think there are opportunities for the interpretive signs. Other questions, comments, feedback, ideas on wayfinding?
No,
Tip of the iceberg here.
it'll be nice when we do have it.
Yeah, that will be really nice.
Yes, it's important.
Mhm.
And the last one under old business, an update on city park planning. We were the lucky winners. HKGI made us a fly-through. They had to do a training and they picked our project.
Well,
And so I would like
you
to,
have to pay for it.
we did not.
Woo!
Thanks.
Yes, I was like, you guys do love us. So I want to show you guys that.
Well, that's the community center
Correct.
with a new look or new roof. Oh, yes, and I keep getting questions about those pickleball courts.
There was 40 people in Pequot High School pickleball on Wednesday.
And they're everywhere. Nisswa's not getting a good reputation by not having them. Not for pickleball courts.
You just gotta show them the video now.
Yeah.
Just say, look at this.
Well, they know it's coming, but they want it sooner than later.
When can this go online?
I have this at a slower speed as well, because the full speed's a little intense.
And there's the covered hockey rink.
Mm-hmm.
Just by looking at it like that, it looks like it covers a lot more space.
Mm-hmm. What's the green roofed building in the back there? Is that this building?
City Hall, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, looks like quite a complex.
Looks like a
Doesn't it?
lot of concrete that I,
Mhm.
that I, that I thought of originally, you know?
Well, it is more concrete than that's there now.
Yes, so still very much conceptual. There's plenty of things like garage doors and things like that that are not on buildings. So it's still extremely conceptual, but it gives another representation of what the space could be. Last night I did show city council this video. We had another talk about just how to kind of bring this forward to the community if we're comfortable, ready to begin the process. The Brainerd Lakes Area Community Fund how is housing the like donations for us. So it's the Nisswa Enrichment Fund. And it is for all of Nisswa, not just Parks and Rec, park improvements. But we did sit down with them in November. Spirits transferred 20,000 to start up the fund. And so we're grateful for that startup money. It is now, I believe, viewable. I just got the draft of a press release yesterday. And so I will be working with the city administrator just on that, the timing of a press release from the community foundation. And coming back to you guys now that we have the green light to bring this plan to the community and start the fundraising process, working through some of the stuff. I know we've talked a lot in the past about there's different ways, different approaches. One of the big things is I can't do a lot of it. But I think there are things that we can do, and I think you guys all have different networks and avenues and things that you're passionate about. And I think that, not that I'm asking you guys to be the fundraisers, but to help champion the plan and the project and help you're getting the questions, help them get the information they need. And so my hope here is that in February or March, I'll kind of have some stuff put together for you guys to look at in terms of a kind of a plan to bring this forward to the community. Ultimately, we obviously want it ready to rock for summer. But the fund is now, I believe, viewable. We will get a press release out here. I've talked to Pickle and Spirits about doing kind of like a roundup campaign. I'm sure there's other entities around here that might be willing to participate in that as well. Even bringing like whatever the downtown master plan process is, those open houses, being present at that to talk about these things and just trying to really work with city departments. We've talked about having that visual representation of the thermometer and things like that, a page on the website that shows the video and things like that. If I can figure out how to put it on Facebook, or we'll try and get all those things kind of sorted out. But just trying to get kind of a plan put together, especially for this first year. And I will bring back the information sheets that I provided to city council. I think I shared them with you guys in the past. I'll bring those to you again. The plan is that is donate for especially the pickleball and the playground. Donations are the funding source. from donations. We can use that as matching dollars for grants, certainly. But that, as we have talked about, I'll say that quadrant of the playground would be more of the phase one. There is a lot of unknowns in terms of the hockey rink and how that will be funded. If that can be funded. That is a sizable project. The mechanism that we've always talked about is the local option sales tax. There's a 2-year moratorium on that. So we're opting to leave it in here until we have concrete information. You know, we're gonna roll with this and we'll make decisions as we need to. But we don't want to delay pickleball and the playground because of those other things.
So is it my understanding correct when we mentioned before that you needed to have an engineer to scope out the project prior to even start putting pickleball or the playground out there?
I think on some level, just to make sure, especially like any of the utilities, like there's some water and the irrigation and some basic things to make sure that we're not gonna have to backtrack once we get to the other part of the park.
So I have an 80 grand stuck in my head for some reason. Was that part of the process for the city engineer to do that project? Or do
I would have to look. They gave a very high level estimate like last spring. So I'd have to look back on some of that. Nothing is concrete at this point. Everything is still conceptual and we would have to raise the funds to build it. We'd have to, and a lot of this stuff you're working like with a playground, you're working with a playground vendor. There's only so much the engineer does. Same thing with pickleball, but we do want to make sure, like, especially the utilities and all the underground stuff, that we're not going to have to like backtrack and, you know, we've had something under the pickleball court and now we have to rip
But
that
you
out.
will
And
have to know in order to go out and ask for private donations for, let's say, the pickleball court, you will have to know how much it's gonna cost, what it's gonna be, when it's gonna be built. People will want to know that. They're not just gonna donate money because you might be building it.
One, you can't put a date as to when it's gonna be built, because if we're reliant on donation funds to do it, but the price on there, how much? What we discussed last night is the council would like to see a phase, because we know that pickleball and the playground must be done. So.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, they'll have on the fundraising website, the cost broken down, correct?
yeah, and we haven't gone through a thorough assessment. Like we haven't hired anybody to do that. I haven't contacted a fence company of, you know, haven't contacted any contractors to get a extremely accurate price. We have information from other places with our closest best guess. And so we're kind of basing it off of that at this time. Council has not directed me to go hone in on it yet. But we do want to your point, like this is our goal. This is the goal we're trying to achieve. Hopefully we're gonna push the marketing and all those things to keep on a desirable timeline.
Do we feel like the new parking lot would be part of phase one? You know, as we get pickleball and tennis and a playground.
Are you talking about the reorientation by the community center or on the
Well,
church
just,
street?
you know, a new asphalt and, I mean, that's all designed a little bit differently. I mean, that's all
Yes.
new.
So other things, in the 2025 road bond, I mentioned the community center parking lot is one of the items under consideration. With that, I've brought up, do you do it? Do we reorient it? How much do we want to do before we do construction? Same thing with Church Street. Church Street is also due up to be redone. With that, we're talking about adding the trail on Church Street. Haven't talked about adding on the parking lot just because that is such a variable with the hockey rink. So certainly more to come on the best way to step through it all.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have a better idea of how the fundraising is going. To see the timelines on that stuff. If we have enough money by the end of the year and I can go out for the DNR outdoor rec grant come the next cycle in the spring, that would be huge. And then with that cycle, you have, basically one construction season. So if we went out for that grant in 2025, and if we were accepted, you're constructing 2026.
Well, that's a fundraising selling point is people need to understand that there is a match. And, if they donate now, then we would have the match to build it. But, I mean, these other communities like Crosby, I mean, they had a citizen committee that actually, got behind that. So did Cross Lake. They had a couple of individuals who spearheaded it and, worked with the city. We don't have that. And I'm not gonna volunteer to take it on.
No.
Yeah,
And maybe
yeah.
within that network, word spreads really fast and we want it soon and
They want it next year, but
we raise so much money that we don't need to have the grant.
I don't
And
think
then
that's
that
gonna happen.
expedites the process.
And it's one pot, right? Like there's.
The
not going to
Nisswa
be a
Enrichment Fund is one,
pickleball Pot and a.
You
park
can-
Pot, or is there?
you can you can make a note of what you'd like to go for it to go for, and I will have to track that myself.
Okay.
But the Nisswa Enrichment Fund is one pot for Nisswa. So anything that is noted, memoed is our own tracking.
But they won't, of course, we don't have the fundraising, site materials up yet, but you be relying on someone to know they should put a note, or there will be actually a mechanism that they can check off.
And I need to walk through it, cause I think it just became live yesterday. And so I haven't gone through it yet, but as clearly as I can identify and help people walk through the steps. Cause you can donate online, you can come in here, all would be acceptable ways. The $250 is where they'll send you a tax receipt for it. So that's kind of the threshold from their end of the donation, and if that's a consideration for people on the larger end of it, they know how to work with real estate and all the other things that I'm unfamiliar with. So if people want to do large gifts to the fund, they have that expertise.
So who's they?
The Brainerd Lakes Area Community
Oh,
Fund.
Okay, because didn't the council allocate like $25,000 to fundraising, and what did that buy?
We did talk about marketing, that was pulled from the budget.
Oh, okay.
This
I
might
thought,
be-
that's good because I think it was very premature.
What was the marketing?
Spending the money on marketing when we didn't have a brand, we didn't know exactly what we were gonna do. It just seemed like it was premature to making some of those decisions from a marketing aspect. I mean, they didn't have anything to work with.
Yeah. So yes, that got pulled from the budget. But we will find a way.
I have a feeling somebody's gonna ask this, so I'm just gonna ask it right now. But I'm looking at this visual and I see 6 pickleball courts, 1 tennis court. We will know that, I know this kind of goes back to your thought process, we will know that figure. What happens if we can only afford 4 pickleball courts and 1 tennis court? Will it still get built, or does it have to be?
Well, I mean, that's maybe a good philosophical question for us to decide. Are we gonna put a deadline on this and wherever we're at?
Yeah, okay.
And we'll build what we can with the money we have by year end of 2025 or 2024 and that's what it will be, or are we,
Yeah,
the goal is to get pickleball. Don't, like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're not doing pickleball.
yep,
But to your question of to what extent
Yep.
and in what time frame.
You also
Um,
have to make sure that you have everything else set and paid for before you, if, like, say you get the money to put the pickleball courts in, that whatever the engineer has to do or has to be done, that money goes to that priority first. You know, cause we talked about it before, you gotta do things in order, right? I mean, you said that pickleball is a high priority and so is the playground. But what about if the engineer comes in there and, like, if you got the concrete in there, do you have to get the concrete in there before the pickleball court goes in there? You know, so you gotta have that balance in there too, cause if people wanna put their money in pickleball and they got the pickleball courts, we got the money for the pickleball courts, they're gonna want those pickleball courts.
mhm.
You know you know what I mean?
Yeah,
They don't wanna.
and we don't have a long lifespan on the playground either, so.
Same with
Exactly.
Same with the playground.
Yeah.
Yeah, same with, they got that money in the bank, they're gonna wanna see it done.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of things still that need to be worked on and worked through. Um, most definitely.
that's a good point though, because even the playground, same thing. So how many structures do you need to have in order to pull the trigger?
Well, so the swing sets need to be replaced and the 5 to 12-year-old playground for sure need to be replaced. So the one thing that is new and doesn't necessarily need to be replaced is a 2 to 5-year-old playground. Everything else is pretty much coming due. When you look at just replacing those, you're probably looking at 150,000 with no improvement to the container. There's no port in place. There's no inclusive focus. There'd be elements of it, but because believe that's important and as a part of our master plan. But when you're looking at the playground that's in this video, that's about 400,000. If we want to do all poured in place. And talking with some people, they're like, the whole mixture of wood chips and poured in place, people would rather just pick one or the other. So if we want to do an entire poured in place, we're maybe more like 600,000.
I think when we talk about fundraising, we have to realize that, like for the pickleball courts, there is an older crowd that will use these. I mean, if it's for families and everybody, but there's a huge population of older people who are really into pickleball now. And a lot of those people that will use it are seasonal people that live that are in the Nisswa area. And so it will behoove us, I think, to have some numbers in place by summer, by the time they come back, by May, if we want to raise any money, because they'll go off again in October and they'll be gone.
Right. Yeah, I think we want to be,
So we've got to be
Rock and ride.
prepared to, here's the reasons, here's what you can do.
do you guys have a thought like off the top of your head of like, the goal is 6 courts, 1 tennis court for X amount of dollars within a time frame? Should we fall short of that? Plan is,
Well, we have to know how much the courts are going to cost, but
Mhm.
I mean, looking at that design, wouldn't it be possible? I mean, I hope this is not what happens, but possible to put in the tennis court and 4 pickleball courts, because the tennis court is going to be usable for pickleball as well, right? And then later on, add the final 2.
it's just a question of, do you go for the whole shebang and all the site furnishings and all of that, and like, this is the goal? Or are we going on a timeline? And we build what we can in the timeline.
It's a good
Well,
question.
I think I want to see the pickleball courts built in 2024, but that's not going to happen. But they definitely need to be built in 2025 because that's what we've been telling people. Or that's what I've been telling people, because that was my understanding that's when we were going to shoot for it.
You don't have to start with 6 pickleball courts, you can start with 2, you can start with 1 pickleball court.
Oh, no, that won't do.
And I think it's gonna become more and more costly if we do one or two at a time. I feel like if we're gonna
Yeah.
do it, we should do it right and we should do all of them. I mean, there's probably a way to separate two by a sidewalk, you know, if you did a sidewalk and you could add on to the backside
Yeah,
later
come up
on,
with
but
cost ones.
you really,
Yeah.
you gotta, I mean, to do it right and to be efficient with your funds, I just feel like we should do them all right away.
And a secondary point to that, which is a very legitimate across all construction, right? Legitimate concern. The feeling of the park is perpetually under construction. With
Yeah,
all these different phases, you got the parking lot and then you know, so I'm not trying to hold up any one aspect of the project by any means, because we have no idea how it's all gonna shake out.
but you've been telling us all along that we couldn't do the pickleball courts without doing the playground at the same time. Is that still true?
I think there's some level of engineering for the earth that needs to be considered so that there's a spatial awareness, so everything has their space to go forward,
And
if that makes sense.
again, this is conceptual, but based on this, that playground is moving and some
Yeah,
of
it's
these
moving.
courts are where the current playground
Is.
is. And so we can't start putting in pickleball courts, you know, without doing something with the playground.
Yeah, that
And
was,
if it-
that was a question. It looked like the playground actually did move farther east. Is that right?
Yes. And so that's a consideration. Obviously, this is conceptual. And so we do, like, when we're looking, when I say we're engineering and looking at the earth, if playground's way far behind, we can change the shape of the container. And we can assess if we can shift pickleball. So once we get into the finer details of bringing it to life, there could be some reshaping and moving of things
Right.
to say, but yes, this concept shows pickleball on the existing playground. That
And-
doesn't mean that's what has
and
to happen
tennis
in
court.
reality, but
It also shows the hockey rink in a different orientation than it is now.
correct. And the playground is over the existing warming house.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it might be, it's gonna be a big number, but I just feel like if we could set a number for the tennis court, or like the pickleball tennis court, the playground and the parking lot. And I'm a big proponent of the parking lot just because the way it is now, you could go on a Saturday and you don't find a spot to park. And as soon as you put up 6 pickleball courts,
Yeah.
you're gonna be parking, you know, 2.5 miles away to get there. So if we could include the parking lot, and then I think from an engineering standpoint, it might be a little bit easier to focus on that half of the park. And then we can plan to do, and everything else is gonna take a lot longer to fundraise for, and that's a whole different beast. But I feel like these are the playground, the pickleball is the most exciting, the playground is the most functional for everything. So if we could set a number on those 3 items and get that first half of the park organized and a number and people excited, you know, get people excited for, I feel like we could probably hit that number. But yes, there is the question of if it comes in at 1.7 million or 2.5 million and we get stuck at 400,000, then it's like, then what? But
Yeah. And the round numbers that we've kind of thrown out a little bit, for the whole pickleball area, I want to say is about 400,000. And then the playground is more, I think, a little bit north of 6. And that it hopefully is on the high end. Just to provide some round preliminary best guessing kind of numbers. And maybe within that, there's a dialogue with city council if if we raise, you know, 200,000, city council puts in 100,000 and we have that 300,000 to put in for matching funds kind of thing. I think once we get this, we need to kind of put together a plan and have these numbers and ideas. And I think as we go and we see what's gonna happen, it'll really bring it into focus too. Of how we need to work through some of the finer end details.
So I know about the DNR's recreation grants, which those are due like in March, I
Mhm.
think. What's the maximum you can ask for and what's the match on those?
350,000 was last year's with a 50% match. So if you had 350,000, you would have a total pot of 700.
Yeah. I think 400,000 for the pickleball courts is a little high, but if that includes the tennis court, then it's probably reasonable.
Yeah, and and that fencing, site furnishings, paddle holders,
Gonna move trees, you're gonna have. to
some
move
trees, trying to go on the high end, so maybe we can get those site furnishings that we want from the get-go. To me, black fences look a lot nicer than standard chain link, but that comes with a price.
Mhm.
It is more aesthetically appealing. But if the price isn't there, then you don't do it.
Mhm. And I don't know if you could, I don't know anything about the engineering side of things when it comes to this scale of a project and working with the city, but, I think it was said that, the engineering would be 7% of the project or,
Typically, engineering, I mean, street cross support doesn't matter who you are, is anywhere from 7 to 10% of the total cost of a project.
okay,
No matter where you're at. Woodset is usually they usually stay around that 7%.
sure,
Yeah, they estimate often around 8.
okay. I'm just wondering, I mean, is there such thing as a third party, or not third party, but, an engineer that works hourly that can work with the city? For something like, this isn't this is a big scaled project, but if this is a $10 million project and are we $700,000 a realistic engineering budget? Maybe it is. Again, I don't know anything about the engineering side, but I just think of two guys working hourly could retire.
Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
local government has,
Your period.
So, they put in, they say, okay, 7% of the thing. But if their total costs come less than that, that's what the city's charged.
Sure.
We have a good working relationship with Seth.
Sure.
When it comes to the engineering, if you guys decide you wanna go with somebody else, you can always bring it to council, say we wanna go with JP
Sure.
Houlihan, okay?
and I'm not quite sure what those processes are, if you have to go like out for bid or, because that might be at a price level that it has to be a sealed bid process.
Well, Paul has a good point though, because when you go with with Seth or any other one, you're paying for their operational costs, it's not just two engineers.
But
So-
the other thing too is let's say during the construction or something, if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Okay? Seth handles it.
Mm-hmm.
Well-
They handle everything. City doesn't have to handle it. So, some engineering firms, say John down the street, is an engineer, he does this kind of stuff, does it? Okay, so now there's a problem because some things weren't put in the right place. Is he gonna be able to deal with that company and get those kind of results?
Yeah.
There was a really big figure number mess up with the project that the city did, and Woodset handled it, and they had it taken care of in days.
Yeah, which I totally get that end of things, and I know when Seth does.
But then again, I mean, there are some firms out there that they may come in over, and they may be able to do the same thing, so, the council's discussed that in some meetings.
And this isn't putting in pickleball courts, this isn't a complicated, like a trail, like the trail has been.
Yeah.
It's not likely to have as many engineering problems as we ran into with the Gull Lake Trail,
Mhm.
which,
And
Yeah.
really just the utilities is probably the most complex, and I mean, water runoff and elevation, elevations, but I just think of each individual item is a different contractor designing it,
Yeah.
installing it. And so they're also going to be,
Let me tell you, you don't want to get the slope of a pickleball court wrong.
No, no, no.
You do not want to be redoing that because you're off by like 0.2 of an inch.
You
And
just have to buy more squeegees.
Um,
for it.
so yeah,
Squeegee off
to
the
Paul's
water.
point, like some of this stuff, like you're working with the playground company.
Mhm.
It's not the engineer designing the playground. So it's kind of just dealing with the earth and then building upon it. Whereas the buildings, the structures are gonna be a lot more technical architectural designs and things like that. So there is a slight difference between the two sides of the park, I'll say.
Your big cost for engineering is the buildings and that kind of stuff. Basically what they'll do is they'll look over, we say, we need to, let's go over this. They'll say, okay, this is what you're planning. I'll say, okay, we don't foresee any utilities. There are no utilities where the water concerns are. We don't foresee any having to go through there. There's no water lines, no sewage, no through it. Even in the 20 years from now, we don't foresee that. Okay, if that's good, we can go, And then, but the big costs for engineering are the buildings and, now, the parking lot will be in the bonding bill, right? For parking lot.
Oh, that's good. to know.
Hopefully.
That's good to know.
The worry would be is, okay, so bonding is for 2025, so do we have it set, do we have the money for the pickleball? But it looks like they get up, and then that's when we would be looked at to do the parking lot as it is, or how it can be, and then that. Maybe at that time, well, the sidewalk would probably be at that time, it would all.
Well, so the 2025 bonding bill, that you're talking about next, 2025 legislature would address the bonding bill, or are they gonna address it this year? Because the fiscal year for the state is July 1st, so whatever goes down in the legislature.
It will be for, pretty sure,
Even years are usually budget years and odd years are usually bonding years, but my point was gonna be that if the legislature addresses bonding in 2025, you wouldn't be getting the money until July 1st of that year.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the last thing in terms of trying to figure out what all these things cost, I think we have, we don't want to get into a scenario that happened with the Gull Lake Trail and the massive inflation that happened, and then we're so far off and we're cutting the project. And so I think part of it is we are trying to aim high and to, one, include the amenities, two, to hopefully cover the inflations. And I would hate to have this underestimate. We get there and we're excited and it's like, just kidding. Not there yet. And so I will work on trying to put some of this together into a plan and bring it back to you guys, and different areas we can market, different ideas for, ways of getting it out there, and then maybe how to kind of put these different elements into phases and price tags for the website.
Okay, sounds great.
But we gotta fly through.
it is fun to see.
Any other questions, thoughts at this time? Direction that you'd like to see it go?
No,
Any topics anyone needs to bring up? Let's do it.
can you send us a link to whatever that fundraising page is when it's live?
Yes, I'm hoping I'll have time tomorrow to
Okay.
not flood the rink.
Oh, yeah.
Next meeting, February 1st. Otherwise, if there's no other discussion or comments, take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All right, thank you.